So, Alyssa,
Hi, how's it going?
when did we get a third chair?
When did you?
I came ready.
He brought his own chair.
I'm ready.
So, if we're gonna do this, though, we have to like be social about it. Here, let me just get a selfie with all of us here. See? But you know what isn't social? TikTok, apparently. So TikTok came out this week saying that they are not a social media platform. And I want to read this to you guys before we get started. And to us, this is fascinating that a social media company, and we will define it as a social media company, is saying that they're not that. And this comes directly from them. Like this was Cartoon Weiss, head of global agency and accounts at TikTok, described the app in her keynote as an entertainment platform, not a social media.
Why? That's kind of the big one.
But what is social? If they're not social media, what is social media? Because is YouTube?
Well, and that's a hard one because YouTube is technically social. It is technically social, but in my mind, YouTube is still a search engine. So Miriam Webster, if you want to check that out, or dictionary.com, or anything else that defines words, social media is usually a place where people are able to gather together, share created content with one another.
Don't they do that on TikTok though?
They do.
Okay.
But one of the things in that article on that they pointed out was that I think it's less than 20%, maybe even less than 10%, actually utilize TikTok's peer-to-peer messaging system that exists.
So approximately 15% use the direct messaging functionality.
Right. So in the direct messaging that you see, YouTube does not have this. You have the ability to set up an email and get email sent, but not messaging. Facebook has that direct messaging, and subsequently Instagram and WhatsApp, and they're all fairly connected, whether they tell you that or otherwise. And then other platforms, LinkedIn has this, your ability to just directly reach out to people. What is interesting is just because people don't use it, does that change the dimension or the definition? Because there are a lot of features that TikTok has that the other platforms subsequently have used. The entire video format that we use now is TikTok at this point. The Reels, the Facebook videos, the YouTube Shorts are all just cloning from TikTok. So do features and the uses thereof determine whether something is social media?
Well, and I think that's part of their perspective a little bit, and they even say it in this article, and we'll have that linked in down below in the description, that people check Twitter, they check Snapchat, they check things, but they don't ever check TikTok. They just watch TikTok. And philosophically, I think from a business perspective, what the person's trying to get at is that in terms of a business model, they're about enabling and equipping content creators more so than creating a social interaction.
I struggle with that because as much as I agree, it's more like, for me, the way I see it is you have content creators, but a lot of content creators that maybe don't necessarily do small business and they just make fun content, they are constantly interacting with the people that comment, that follow. They're doing live videos on TikTok, on Instagram, wherever they feel like doing it, but on TikTok. And on a live video, they're still interacting with those people. So there's still that connection and that social aspect that falls into that definition. And so unless certain features, in my mind, are taken away, where it's just video and that's all you do, you watch and you can you can't necessarily interact any way other than that, I still see TikTok as being a social media platform that is geared more towards entertainment and that kind of stuff.
So then I would ask, how is that different from, I think it's Snapchat highlights, right? Because it's basically TikTok. You scroll it like TikTok, but there is no commenting. There is a and there's report, but there's not a lot of other functionality.
So, and that's what I was saying. If TikTok looked like that exclusively, that then I would see it differently. I would see it as, okay, maybe it's not a social media. It's something else. That feature on Snapchat, though, it is just basically a duplicate of TikTok. And then even then, that's kind of where you go to like see maybe what's trending. If you use it, I personally don't use it as much. I just kind of message people on Snapchat and post. But at that point, it's really, you're still using the social part with your friends. And so every platform offers a different feature that makes it more or less social.
Yeah, a few things to think about that have been brought up. The live streams are a great example, because how is a TikTok live any different from maybe a Twitch stream, which may or may not be social media, but a Facebook Live, which definitely is. From a technical perspective too, TikTok, in a variety of ways, even just the way it's used, is building upon that algorithmic curation of your content based on your interests that originates from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, to a degree Snapchat, and Twitter. Twitter is a level of like who you follow, but also
Right.
so playing into algorithms, TikTok is by far leading by algorithm, but it is not that kind of curation is not original. It comes from those. Is it trying to preemptively absolve itself from being a publisher and to escape that argument of being a social media platform and not being held accountable for what individual creators post, similar to what YouTube typically has been able to get away from, but Facebook and Instagram have not?
As you talk about the algorithm, like hardly anyone follows their friends on TikTok. You are just following other creators for the most part.
Yeah.
And so I can see where their perspective on that is a little bit skewed. But once again, if you are the algorithm and you are curating, essentially, aren't you a publisher at that point?
Yeah. And then also where shares come into play, if we're talking about that, you may not be following and interacting directly with friend content. You are definitely sharing it if you're on there a lot.
Oh, sure.
Like,
Yeah.
as a form of social content. And even shares as one of the metrics of success as a content creator. Like, yes, but also...
They had mentioned that, like, okay, 15% of their users use the peer-to-peer system. What's the difference between using the peer-to-peer system to have a conversation versus talking to someone in the comments and having a 20-comment conversation within a TikTok video? Is that not direct communication and then also resharing of like, oh, by the way, you should check out this person's video and that person's video. Oh, hey, this is related. Oh, hey, where's part one? Oh, here's the link to part one. You know, what's the difference on that?
Like, I don't necessarily see too much of a difference. Like, if you're going to be in the comments on a video, whether that's discussing the topic of the video or asking for more content, that happens a lot in like those story time TikToks that I love so much. Or if you're sending 1, 2, 3, 20, 30 TikToks to your friend to watch, it both plays in the same way in my mind. And granted, like, you're sharing multiple videos in comparison to talking on one video, but you're also in a way just creating little communities in the comment section, which I see as more valuable than just sending 30 videos to your friend. But when it comes down to, I'm in the comments and I love this topic or I love this video and I'm gonna, or like Clean Talk. Okay, on Clean Talk, like I have this one thing and I like don't understand how to clean it. I had someone respond to me like, oh, well, you could do this. I had the creator of the video respond to me and say, oh, well, you could do this too. And then there was this whole thread of like ideas and tips, and it formed a mini community that, I mean, I was able to figure out how to clean certain things, which was great. And so to me, both are very valuable, but I would see comments as being more beneficial for building and growing your fan base and your community, and then sending messages, using that direct message feature as a way to simply share.
Yeah. And before you go, Preston, I don't mean to cut you off. In my mind, what do both of you use to share a TikTok that you find funny? Like, do you actually send the share link inside of TikTok to your TikTok friends, or do you pull it out into Facebook or text message or other platforms?
It depends on who.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So like some people, oh, okay, great. We'll send stuff back and forth natively. People that maybe don't use TikTok as much, but it's like, oh, this is a funny thing and I can't find it on another platform. Here you go.
Same, really. Like I have people that I will just send it directly to on the app and be like, I'm going to share this. And then they end up with like 30 things in their inbox and they're like, why did you send me 30 TikToks? I'm like, why not? I do have like a friend, really. I have a friend, I was going to say friends, but they do not have TikTok at all. And so when I see something that's hilarious, I'm like, I want to share this with you. I'll copy the link and share it that way. Other than that, it's also sometimes me just like pulling out my phone and be like, you have to watch this funny TikTok that I saw. You have to watch it too. And then doing that. So sometimes I just pull it back up and scroll through my liked videos till I find it. So it does kind of depend.
So then is it naive of them to say that they're not social media when they're not even, and this is me making huge amounts of assumptions, but to me, the idea of it's not social media based on percentage of DMs is actually just grossly inaccurate and very naive.
Well, let's flip it then. Let's take their base assumption and assume it's true. If we assume that TikTok is not a social media, what are the implications? Like, it seems like they are trying to be an alternative to YouTube. I wonder too if in doing so, they are trying to figure out the anti-censorship way to avoid the blatant amounts of plagiarism that exist all over this app. But they don't have the monetization structure that, say, YouTube does. The way, if they choose to pay somebody, which it's difficult to get into the creator fund and consistent, like, get a payout worth having, which actually makes it really easy to dance around nobody's getting paid, so nobody's profiting off of the plagiarism.
And I think that's where a lot of companies are trying to crack this nut of how do we create a platform where you're able to develop and nurture an audience. There's another platform called Circles. It's there for edu creators, for people trying to cultivate their audience and teach and create these microcosms. I don't think anyone's been really successful at it except for TikTok. I think they're possibly wanting to shift because of the critical mass of users that they have. Because if YouTube were to shift that direction, I don't know that it would work.
Yeah. And even with shorts, it's been hit or miss. Like, shorts are something that's more kind of like the community tab, something that was forced with mixed results. And even YouTube internally has kind of been like, please don't just repost all your TikToks.
Yeah.
We want to enable you. If anything, they want it to be the other way, make your content here and then post it on TikTok, as opposed to reposting. There are a lot of people that otherwise probably wouldn't have made any content ever in their lives have been enabled to pick up the phone and respond. Like the amount of people that are like, I'm clearly not a comedy talent or whatever, but have figured out, hopped on trends, and been able to use the minimum tools to start something, to get an audience that they didn't even know was there, and just empower people of all ages has been fascinating and kind of inspiring in a lot of ways. All that to say, I think they're trying to do something different, and they don't want to be social media.
Right, and I get that a little bit. Like, even when Dorsey and Zuckerberg were testifying in front of Congress asking, all right, who's your top competitor, Zuckerberg? Who's your like direct competitor? No one. Well, what about Twitter? User model, base, and monetization strategies, distinctly different. I do agree with some of that assessment of like, how do we be distinctly different? I just don't know if having your lead VPs making statements like that and even questioning what is social media, just because that's so philosophical. I mean, Discord could be social media, even like based on some of the criterions we've had, even Spotify.
So in thinking about whether or not TikTok is or isn't a social media, it does leave a lot of like questions for, okay, well, as a small business or as a business in general, how do I use this to continue to grow? Because even like with the TikTok algorithm, you can't necessarily target who you want to show to and everything like that. And so in thinking about that, there are a lot of ways that businesses can start looking at the way that they produce content for TikTok specifically. This doesn't necessarily affect your Facebook or your Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter strategies. It only impacts your TikTok strategy. And one of them for me is if TikTok is claiming to not be social media and more entertainment, how can you turn your content from this, whatever it is now, if it's not entertaining, not saying it's not, but to something more entertaining? How can we take this, condense it into TikTok length and make it something that fits for the TikTok audience? And that's something that I think a lot of people can struggle with as it is now, but as TikTok tries to identify what kind of platform they are, because I don't think this is the last we're really gonna hear about TikTok being or not being a social media. One thing is going to be looking at, okay, I wanna talk about this, and how can I make it educational, informative, and entertaining, all wrapped into one pretty little package, and then post it onto TikTok. And so that's one thing to kind of look at and evaluate on how to continue using TikTok for your business.
Expertise is huge. Since you don't have localized targeting, the next best thing that you can do, instead of saying, hey, shop here, is to step in and be like, as a, whatever you are, as an automotive specialist for 30 years, or as a local cleaning person for a decade, or as a full-time whatever it is, being able to speak from a place of authority. This is what I've done that's worked. This is my opinion on this trend, whether it's good or bad, and this ability of like, are you good at what you do? Talk about it.
Yeah, and that's a good way to kind of like shift your content, because also being a master at what you do is something that people want to know about, because I love learning about how to be a better brand strategist from better brand strategists. And that's one way that I kind of follow. And the other thing, and we've said this in other weekly socials, is don't let TikTok be the only thing you use. Don't let Instagram be the only thing you use. Social media should be a part of your overall marketing strategy. It should not be your marketing strategy, for reasons like this, because it's constantly changing. Their algorithms are changing. The way that they have the platform formatted is constantly changing and growing. Sometimes it's really great, other times it's a lot less favorable, especially for us. And so being able to expand out into things like email marketing, improving, enhancing your website, using your, like blogs. If you can make a TikTok about it, you can make a blog about it. And the same goes the other way around.
No, I think that's a good note for us to close out on. Because we want to encourage people to use the platforms to do things, try things, test things, push things. And there's some really cool opportunities. And that being said, if TikTok or other entities are going to shift and weight the algorithm differently, like with YouTube Shorts, they are heavily weighting the algorithm towards YouTube Shorts. Let's hop on it. Let's engage it. Let's touch it. Let's work and see what's best for the companies that we serve, for our own company, and for those things moving forward. So hope you all enjoyed today's session. A little bit different because we did find another chair.
There's another chair.
We're actually really excited. We're not going to do it this way every week, but we like being social.
Because it's your weekly social.
See you next time. Good night, everybody.
We broke Peter. You should just leave this in the end of the video.
You should.
Or just have it cut out, like you cut the video, and then have the audio in the background.